Danse, Gakio, Wotse, Squatame, Betaway, Go, Squatame, Wehe, Nia Crystal Lameman, Amisk, Sage, Gun, Treaty 6, Dat Damanan, Inuak of this treaty land. So that I said in my language, I'm a Cree woman from northern Alberta. I said, hello everyone, from the doorway in to the doorway out. My name is Crystal Lameman, and I'm from Beaver Lake, Treaty 6. And you know, I'm thankful and I'm grateful to the people of this treaty land. So first of all, you know, I just want to say, you know, that those of you that have heard me speak before, you know, I'm usually really put together, and I don't feel like that right now. You know, and I'm going to try to explain that. You know, I had a PowerPoint and all these things, and you know, last minute, literally, you know, last minute, like 2 hours ago, I realized that, you know, I just have to speak from here, you know, and that's, and sometimes that's hard to do, you know, but our Creator, you know, Xemantu, you know, he gave us 2 ears and one mouth for a reason, you know, so that we can listen more than we talk. And you know, sometimes I think as young people we forget that. I'm one of them. And so I'm going to try and make that connection, you know, instead of from here to here, from here to here. So I want to acknowledge that we're even here, that we're all here together. You know, 100 years ago, well, 50 years ago, 30 years ago, even, you know, this wouldn't have been, you know, yet here we are, you know, looking beyond the confines of race, color, and creed. And we're involved. You all need to get it into your heads that we're involved in a revolution. You know, we all, you know, come into this movement, you know, and we look back at the things that have happened. You know, for me, I look at my family and the things that they have done, you know, as activists, you know, and I use that term loosely because we're not activists. You know, I'm a mom, and I have an obligation to those children that I brought into this world. And, you know, here we are, we're shifting and we're moving. Change makers, that's what you are. So let's acknowledge that, all of us, you know, acknowledge that together, that we made that commitment collectively to be here. You know, and some of us, we had to make really hard decisions to be here. You know, I'm a long way from home, and I've been away from home for almost a week now. And I'm a single mom to two beautiful little children. You know, I've got Grace Guy, who's 7, and Gina, she's 5. And then there's those of, you know, we all took time out of our lives to be here. And because of that, you know, I'm grateful to you. You give me hope and optimism for my children's future and my future grandchildren, if I'm lucky. And that reminder that we do it for the children. And you get that. And so my children and I, you know, we thank you. And unfortunately, you know, in a lot of ways, we're not all here for happy, good reasons. You know, that there's an epidemic. There's an epidemic that we're facing right now. a disease, an addiction, and it's eating humanity. An addiction to oil and gas. And that addiction is feeding greed. Right from the day, you know, and each and every one of you in here, you have to take what I say in a good way, okay? In a kind way. I don't say things to be mean. Anybody who knows me knows that. You know, sometimes people, they get upset with the terminology I use, you know, but I'm a conduit. I'm a conduit. I don't know anything. I don't claim to know anything. I just know what I've been told and how I've been talked to. As a young girl, you know, I was lucky enough that I was brought up by old people. You know, I was brought up with my ways of knowing and being, you know, and I feel lucky because of that. So you know, this addiction that's feeding greed, you know, right from the day that our visitors, you know, they came here. It's always been about development. From the railroads to the gold, diamonds, oil and gas, whatever it might be. You know, whatever is sexy today, I guess. From one end of this nation to the other. All across, you know, this, what we now call Canada. And we are involved in a direct exploitation of our natural resources. And especially as First Nations people, you know, the Northern Gateway and Kinder Morgan pipelines in BC, the tar sands, natural gas and coal extraction in Alberta, uranium, potash, and crude oil extraction in Saskatchewan, the destruction of treaty lands in Manitoba for hydraulic power generation, mining of diamonds in Ottawapiskat, Enbridge's Line 9 in Aamjiwnaang, Ontario, mining of diamonds in the Northwest Territories, Arctic drilling, fracking of natural gas in Elsipogtog, and now most recently the Energy East pipeline. And examples of the environmental degradation, all in the name of greed. The exploitation of natural resources, and amongst this, First Nations people must also face environmental racism. A government looking beyond the front lines of these communities that are being impacted by these decisions. And greed for material things? Why? For what reason? We're not going to take those things with us when we go. But we're supposed to leave something for our children. We have that belief that what we take from the land, we have to put something back. What are we leaving for our children and our future generations? Are we leaving them a healthy mother? Clean air and clean water? Ecosystems intact so they too can sustain themselves? You all know the answer to that, and that's why you're here. And this government, you know, that we have, it doesn't get to pick the pieces of its law that it likes and which ones it doesn't. They made their law. They must abide by it. Because as Indigenous peoples, we abide by natural law. And there's nothing natural about a people dying from cancer, moose with pus bubbles under the skin, deer with green meat, boil water advisories, babies being airlifted to the urban medical centers for drinking contaminated water, respiratory illnesses, etc., etc., etc. And I come from one of those frontline communities. My nation is located right in the middle of 2 of the 3 tar sands deposits in Alberta. We're facing this exploitation on a daily basis. To date in my territory, our traditional territory spans about 39,000 square kilometers, and about 35,000 square kilometers of that has been leased out to every major oil and gas company in the world. To date, we are at over 19,000 treaty rights violations and infringements. And what I talk about, that's not a story, that's a reality. I want you to think about that. You know, being thirsty. Think about that. Now I want you to think about going to the land and seeing clean water. Clean water that you could just skim the top of the water and take a dipper and drink that water. And I don't want anybody to think, you know, with those thoughts of like, well, you can't just drink from a lake. Sure you can. And I say that because I made that comment one day on Facebook, of all places. Got so many Facebook warriors out there. But yet they know where I'm going to be and they don't ever come there. And this fool jumped on there and said, and if you happen to be here, you know, I'll be here. You can come and see me. He said, well, you're not supposed to drink stagnant water anyways. Nobody said it was stagnant. Clean water. That's what our old people, they talk about. That time when they could skim the top of the water, they could take their dipper from their backpack and they could drink that water. And that was the best kind of water. And I'm going to let you guys know right now, I'm probably going to go over my time, hey? I got lots of important things to say. I just, you guys were a little too serious out there. You know, that's my reality. That's becoming a story that I tell my children. And it should never be that way. It should never be a story. That's a violation of our basic human rights. That's a violation of our inherent treaty rights that we have as a nation within a nation in this country that we call Canada. We have rights that existed long before our visitors came here. We have a right to drink clean water. We have a right to go to our land to sustain ourselves as long as the grass grows, the rivers flow, and the sun shines. You know, talking about Facebook, you know, we all read the Facebook and the Twitter posts, social media, all those posts of disaster, things that are going on all over on a global level. The things I talk about, you know, you might sit there, oh, those poor people in Alberta. Squirrel, carry on. You laugh, but that's true. How many people do we know have that exact same mentality? And I know you all get it, and that's why you're here. So you need to start talking to those people. That it's their reality too. You need to start talking to people, letting them know that this is no longer an Indian problem. If you breathe air and you drink water, this is about you. You know, I was driving, you know, from the airport to the hotel, and you know, the guy that I was driving with, you know, I don't think he was thinking too much, you know, about what he said or how it might have impacted me. But you know, he said, yeah, this is. He was just giving me some history of the of Halifax, and you know, he said this was one of the main ports. Oh, you know, as he's pointing to, I think a military base or something, some historical military base. And then it hit me. that this was one of the main ports, the first port of entry that our visitors came through when they set foot on this, our Turtle Island. And then I got to the hotel, and it's this old hotel. I love history. I love old things. I don't have an old man, though. And I started to think about the people that walk through those doors. And then I walked into the restaurant. I hadn't eaten all day. I came from Winnipeg. I was over there for a conference with the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs, and I walked into this restaurant, and I was already feeling that the energy and feeling heavy. We get really tired when you're traveling all the time. And, I saw this flag, this old Union Jack hanging there. And it made me want to cry. It reminded me about where we've come since that point. And I started to think about this idea of owning the land ownership. Historically, our ancestors, we don't, even now today, we don't have that understanding to own land. Because you can't own your mother. This earth, that's our one true mother. You can't own her. Therefore, you can't rape and pillage her. And I thought about this Union Jack, and I thought about, I just kept having this stabbing feeling, of this flag getting planted into the ground. And this belief that we put this flag here, so now we own this. It baffles me. Different ways of knowing and being. But we're starting to come full circle, because here we sit looking beyond race, color, and creed. And I hope each and every one of you get that, what I'm trying to tell you, what I'm trying to talk about. Because we're in the position we are in right now today because of that exact thought. And that we can just take and take and take and take, and there's going to be no consequence. There's going to be consequence. There's consequence happening right now. And you see it. In the global warming, the climate change, all of these things that are happening, that's not by chance. And, I flew to Winnipeg on Monday, and I had to leave my children. I went to the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs conference. They had an inherent treaty rights conference over there, and I went to go and speak. And had some other engagements that I had to attend to while I was there. As a woman, when we carry these teachings that we have, teachings of the water, as women, we talk about the water, being keepers of the water, because it's not by chance that women, they carry life in water. Our Mother Earth, that's a female being, and the water, that's the milk of our mother. It has those life-giving abilities. And unfortunately, I'm one of those people, those young people. I'm a product of residential school. A genocide on our people. And there's a gathering happening right now on my territory, Treaty 6, the Truth and Reconciliation Committee, our commission. And, I lost my mom when I was really young. She left when I was really young, and, she succumbed to addictions. And so did my dad. My mom lost her life because of it. And that's when my grandmother brought me up. And then my grandmother left. And so I felt like I had no mom. And then I came into those teachings that we have as Indigenous women. That teaching that we'll always have a mom as long as we have our Mother Earth. I'll always have a mom. And my mom, she's being abused. And you know what? I didn't think my dad was going to go over there to Edmonton, and he went. And I had a really hard time because I really miss my kids, and I wanted to be there for my dad. But I was trying to figure out, what was making me come over here, no matter how I was feeling. Because I started to think about it. It should never be okay that a person, an Indigenous person, should ever have to leave their homeland because their rights are being violated. Because there's unnatural things happening. But that's why I have to leave home. And then I started to think about it. As I got here, and it started to hit me more and more, right from that comment of this was the port of entry. Because then I remembered being in Pittsburgh for Powershift, speaking alongside, folks like Bill McKibben. And I remember, the message I was supposed to have was about the tar sands, my territory. But instead, it was that time I was over there and I was so lonely. I was hurting because that was the same time that those people in Elsipogtog were facing. They were standing on the front line. They were holding the lines. And so I dedicated my speech to the people from this territory. And then I started to think about it as I got here. Since that time, that loneliness I was feeling down there is that same loneliness I'm feeling today. So somehow, some way, I've come full circle. And I know that I'm where I'm supposed to be right now, because we have that belief that when you go about things in a good way with good intentions, our Creator will never leave us vulnerable. He'll test us, but He'll never leave us vulnerable. So it's never okay that elderly women are being shot with rubber bullets. But here we are, after everything we faced as human beings, all of us. We are resilient. There were systems that were created to destroy us as Indigenous people. We're still here. We're still here. We're still here, and we're not going anywhere. We can't undo what's been done, but we can utilize what we have pre-existing. An example being agricultural land, developed land. And that land can be used to create green energy. And as a frontline woman from an impacted community of extreme resource extraction, I use that as an example of a solution from my territory. Because we're already in the energy sector. But that doesn't mean we have to roll over either and just take it as it comes. But at the same time, we also need to start looking at food sovereignty. What does that look like? What is that? I can't see that. I don't have my glasses on. 3 minutes. You're gonna pull me off the stage? I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. You know, I'm a firm believer that everything happens for a reason. You know, where you go, where you end up. You know, and just as I'm starting to look more and more for solutions, you know, I'm suddenly sitting in the car today with someone who knows a little bit about the people's food policy in Canada. You know? So let's start having real discussions. You know, no more meetings to have another meeting, to plan for another meeting, to have another meeting. We don't have time. No more meetings. You know, we must commit to consolidating our efforts and stand strong in the opposition of the agreements forged without our knowledge, our participation, and our consent. And to my First Nations relatives, you know, I say to you, you know, we must take collective control of our natural resources based on the principles of people's participation, gender equality, environmental and social justice, self-reliant and sustainable management systems, whilst maintaining natural law and the assertion of our sovereignty over our lands and our resources. And we must focus on the development rooted in our systems of natural law and not on the capitalist development, respecting Mother Earth, and that includes viable solutions as opposed to false solutions to climate in relation to climate change. You know, we must demand and assert green economies defined by us that put a stop to the capitalism of Mother Nature. You know, Winona LaDuke, you know, I'm real blessed to call her, you know, a mentor and a friend, a sister, you know, and I asked her, you know, I went over there to, you know, Grand Chief Derek Nipanak, you know, they asked me to go over there to Manitoba, you know, and I wanted to talk to these chiefs, you know, these leaders about, you know, well, what do we do? How do we move forward? You know, so I asked her, you know, tell, what do I say to them? You know, tell me what to say to them. She said, stop doing stupid stuff. You know, we need a moratorium on fossil fuel extraction and exploration, and we need to stop wasting time and money. Do the right thing. It's that simple. And then she said, and finally, grow traditional foods and grow smart. Yes, it's that easy. And if it doesn't feel right, it probably isn't. So before your feet touch the floor in the morning, we're all human beings first and foremost. And I'm going to leave you with this, and it comes from the Lakota people. Honor those who came before us, meeting the needs of the present generations, not compromising the futures, so that the coming generations are able to meet their own needs and guide our vision and renew each life cycle. What does this movement look like? This is what this movement looks like. Ksamaga, tatamanun.